we are honored by Congressman Clay Higgins joins us. Congressman Higgins, how you doing, man? It's been a while. Hope you're doing well.
I am well, Moon, and my family is doing well, and I'm happy to be in the state of Louisiana, outside of the madness of D.C. for the last few weeks, and spending a lot of time in front of my constituents. So I'm happy to be with you today.
No, thank you. It's an honor. I'm kind of laughing because, everybody's talking about the United States Senate race, and, you were one of the most one of the biggest names to pop up as somebody potentially looking at this race. And I know you ended up not running. Are you glad you made that choice? I know you got some seniority now in Congress too, though. So there's a lot that goes into making a decision to go from Congress and the House to the Senate. Just your thoughts on, why you didn't get in the race, or maybe you feel very comfortable with what you're doing now.
Well, I have an important role to play in the preservation of our republic, and I do have a seat at virtually every significant table in Washington, D.C., because of my seniority and, importantly, because of my relationship with the president and his senior people. So I did have to factor that into my decision as to whether or not I was going to run for Senate. I did poll it. As you know, you're one of the few that received, I believe, both Trafalgar polls, and they had me way ahead. Like, it wasn't even close. But ultimately, I had to prayerfully reflect upon what was best for the country and for the citizens of Louisiana. And I felt that the job that I had in front of me in the House of Representatives was too significant to be able to step away for, at least some portion of this year and next year. I would have to step away from those very important deliberations in order to run a statewide Senate campaign. So I think I did the right thing. I'm comfortable with that. I felt that that's what the Lord wanted me to do. And we'll see how this field develops. I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are on the field.
Yeah, I said it before. I say it again. I still think we're going to have a new senator. I still believe that 100%. I think the Trump voters are going to vote, and they're going to remove Cassidy. Who's going to win in that field? It's going to have to, we're going to see how the race breaks down. I think that, we just got to wait. It's one of those things that
I think it could go. I think it could go almost in any direction at this point, and we'll see. I do have faith that the people of Louisiana will pay very close attention, and I think that there'll be intelligent and principled choices made. So I have, maybe I'm overly optimistic, but I have faith that the people will do the right thing, whatever that may be. I can't predict. It's impossible at this point.
Yeah, I agree 100%. His name is Clay Higgins. He is our congressman. Clay, I want you to make a little time to talk about the president and the fact that he's serious about crime, and look what he's done in D.C. I mean, I don't know if we've had a murder in 11 or 12 days. Can you talk a little about 12 days?
Yeah.
And so it shows the contrast of Biden-Obama ticket, because that's what it was, and the Democrats being in charge, and President Trump and the Republicans being in charge. Crime is devastating to Democrats and Republicans. But, man, he just looked up and said it, so they hollering unconstitutional and all that. Can you explain what the president's doing?
Yeah, sure. The only municipality in the entire United States of America that is uniquely controlled by Congress and to a certain extent the executive branch is the nation's capital. That's Washington, D.C. So the president has unique constitutional authorities that he has the right to exercise if things get out of control in any way in our nation's capital. And he has made determinations legally, and I believe well within the parameters of the Constitution, that action needed to be taken. Now, it's unfortunate that it got there to the point that that you had to deploy the National Guard and take control of the Metropolitan Police Department and deploy federal law enforcement professionals into the streets of D.C., but it has damn sure worked. And you could argue about whether or not it was necessary, but there's a stark difference between the safety on the streets of our nation's capital in the month of August versus the lack of safety and the absolute danger on the streets of our nation's capital 1 month ago. So Democrat policies are, generally speaking, weak on crime and on law enforcement and weak on prosecution. And D.C. was especially guilty of that. They passed a series of laws a few years ago. We had them in front of the Oversight Committee, and I personally warned the city leaders that you're going to see a tremendous increase in crime. Like, you can't do these things that you intend to do and not see an increase in crime. It's going to get horrible. And unfortunately, I was right. So it brings us to today, and the president has taken action. I'm glad he did. It's completely legal and constitutional. And I hope that other cities are paying attention, because we've just had enough, Moon. Conservative Americans, regular American families, that we just want to live our life, and we want to be able to walk our streets and our neighborhoods and bring our kids to school without threat of violent crime. And we have had enough, and we're fighting back.
One of the things that I want you to explain to people, because the Democrats and the media are running out there and going, well, Trump's being a dictator. This is what you do in Germany. He's going to want to take over city by city, and none of that's true. I mean, they're throwing this stuff out there. I don't think the president has a goal to go city by city. I think the president, you can correct me, I think the president is reaching out to these cities saying, if you need help, we're here to help. Why don't you let us come help? Because if 12 days, no murder, I got to believe the criminals, the thugs are going, hold up just a second, man. We're going to get slaughtered out here with all these people in here watching what's going on, which has never really been done in D.C. in a long time.
All right. Well, as you know, most of your listeners do as well, I guess. I was a cop for a long time. And the street, what we call the street, as it says, like a living organism. And the street responds to the presence of law enforcement. So what the president can do in Washington, D.C. is quite unique because it is our nation's capital. But in every municipality, every density of population that has local government control and state government control, there's also a federal footprint. Like, there are federal offices in those cities. Mm-hmm. And the president has every right to increase federal law enforcement presence at those federal campuses. So when the criminal side of the street gets tuned into the fact that, wow, there's going to be an additional 200 federal law enforcement guys in the city, that they don't really have to do anything. Just the presence of that law enforcement power sends a clear message to the criminal side of the street, wherever the city is, that the normal game is not going to be tolerated. And the local law enforcement gets uplifted by that, because mostly, even in blue cities where police officers have to essentially tolerate very liberal policies and failure to prosecute, you still have cops that are dedicated to law and order and to protecting the citizenry. You have them within those departments. And when something happens where the federal government steps in and heightens the profile of law enforcement, man, the local law enforcement feeds on that energy, and they feel empowered to do their job. So basically, the criminal side of the street gets the message, and they back down.
Yeah,
and that's the way it works.
It's kind of like that in military. If you're going to act weak, if your country's going to act weak, the countries would do whatever they want to you.
That's right.
But once you stand up and man up and tell them we're coming after you, and you get as aggressive as them, they don't have the firepower that the police and the feds have. So I got to believe that's a deterrent right there. Just the fact that, man, you got more people, we got to be cool because these guys they can get all the type weapons they can to put down any of this crime. And by the way, this needs to be done, especially in the blue cities.
Yeah,
it's like they welcome crime. It's okay. Y'all kill, steal, do whatever the hell y'all want to do. Just remember to vote for us on Election Day.
There's carjacking and the violent crimes, the violent property crimes. These massive burglaries where they just break in broad daylight with wearing hoodies and masks and things, and they just destroy stuff and carry out whatever they want, and they dare anyone to stand in their way. Man, that stuff is horrible. Mm-hmm. We've never seen that level of total disrespect for societal norms ever in the history of our country. And Americans have had enough. So I, for one, very much support the president's actions.
All right, let me take a break. His name is Congressman Clay Higgins. And Congressman Higgins he has a lot of seniority now. When we come back, I want to talk about what's going on with illegals, because that looked like we're aggressive on that, and that's changing as well, and it's something you know a lot about. But take a break. You're listening to the Moon Griffon Show right here in Baton Rouge with our friends at Guarantee Broadcast, and we'll be right back. Hi, hello. Welcome back. The Moon Griffon Show, Talk 107.3 FM. We're in the studio. Appreciate Guarantee Broadcasting. It's the Matthew James Tax Pro Hotline. The Honorable Clay Higgins, Congressman Clay Higgins joins. Clay, one of the things that you helped tremendously on is dealing with these illegals. And the president has done just an unbelievable job. We're hearing about the arrests. We're hearing about a lot less people coming over at the border. Can you tell us what we're doing and where are we now compared to where we were before Donald Trump became the president again?
Right. Well, before the election in November, we were averaging 8,000 to 10,000 per day illegals coming into our country. That's what the Biden administration was allowing.
Wow.
And the entire federal law enforcement mechanism, which is vast on our southern border, had been transitioned to processing. It was essentially just processing the illegals coming in and giving them their paperwork to be able to remain in the country on what the Biden administration identified as a quote-unquote legal pathway. And that I believe it was illegal and unconstitutional, but the Biden administration interpreted their actions as assisting illegal immigrants with a legal pathway. So we put a stop to that very quickly. Within 2 weeks of January 20th, there was essentially zero illegal crossings.
You got to be joking. My God, that's a gigantic difference.
Huge. All we had to do was enforce existing law and allow Border Patrol to actually do its job, which is what I've been saying for years. They didn't need more money. They didn't need more laws. That was all Democrat lies. What they needed was policy and an executive branch that was courageous enough to just enforce our existing laws.
Mm-hmm.
So that happened quickly. And once we had stopped the arterial bleed at the border, which again has been brought to virtually zero. That means no human beings illegally trafficked into our country through Mexico, and no illegal drugs illegally trafficked into our country through Mexico. You've almost brought it to zero. Wow. So dealing with the additional 15 million illegals that came into our country in 2021, 22, 23, and 24 required a massive law enforcement exercise. And the president put my friend Tom Homan in charge of that, and Stephen Miller, being a senior advisor within the White House, had the president's ear on how to structure these things. And we have been planning how to execute mass deportation for several years if we ever got a chance to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we've been doing for the last several months, and we're on track to deport about 350,000 this year. And there's probably an additional 200,000 or 300,000, maybe more, difficult to count, of self-deportations, which we thought would work very well, and indeed we were correct. That's guys that are saying, wow, they're picking up, my buddies across the country and across wherever. And so I don't want to get picked up. I'd rather load up my vehicle with my belongings and deport myself as opposed to getting picked up on a job site or hiding under a front porch one day and deported where I have none of my possessions.
Yeah.
So we're probably on track between actual deportations through ICE operations and self-deportations. We're on track for well over 500,000 in the calendar year of 2025 here.
Let me ask you a question, Clay. Was the first concentration on the bad guys? And what I mean by bad guys is the ones that were involved in criminal activity.
Yes.
Because I noticed a lot of arrests on drug dealers, rapists, and all that kind of stuff. So talk a little bit about the difference between that and the regular guys.
That's a good question. Okay. Tom Homan and I are pretty close. And I've communicated heavily with the president's team about this stuff. So the plan was always to execute final removal warrants of illegals that also had criminal involvement. That would mean they've been tagged as a primary suspect in criminal actions, or they actually had a warrant for criminal arrest. So every ICE operation since February has focused on illegals that are also criminally involved. But if you're hanging out with those guys, then you're going to get picked up too. Like if you're an illegal and you're hanging out with two of your illegal buddies, and one of them is a drug dealer or has been involved in human trafficking or is ganged up with MS-13 or something, if you're hanging out with them, when ICE finds that guy, they're going to check your identity, find out you're illegal, and you're getting deported too.
Yeah, let me take a break, but I wanted to ask you another question off of this because it's amazing. Y'all, Trump, they can find them, but Biden and Obama's team couldn't find all these bad people. Anyway, we'll come back, start with that. His name is Clay Higgins. He is our congressman. We'll take a break, be right back. Hi, hello, welcome back. It is the Moon Griffon Show. What a great day to be with you on a terrific Tuesday, 844-766-6607. Matthew James Tax Pro Hotline. We're in Baton Rouge broadcast today. Talk 107.3 FM. My Honorable Clay Higgins, our congressman, is my special guest, and we're talking right now about issues that affect the. Hey, Clay, on the illegals, I want to stick to that just a second, because I had a question for you, because I've heard this, but you probably are a perfect person to answer this. So I heard that with all these illegals that we're running out of here, we're not going to have nobody to work all these jobs and these business people. So how have y'all had to take what y'all trying to do, which is right, based on when these business people say, hold up, I'm working, because there's a legal way for businesses to get people from other countries to work here, correct? So how's that being balanced?
Well, let me say that it's certainly a dynamic that we have heard about, and some of us were very aware that some businesses within industry segments, a lot of construction and agriculture, like some businesses have become reliant upon illegal labor, like illegal immigrants that were here, arguably not participating in any kind of criminal action, but they were here illegally and they were working, and some businesses within segments of American industry had become reliant upon that labor force. And isn't that tragic? I would say some of these guys have come to me and said, Clay, I've had these guys working for me for 20 years. And on the one hand, I am sympathetic because these are, in some cases, my constituents, and they have businesses and they're trying to make it, man, and I want to help them. But on the other hand, I say, you know, why didn't a guy get squared away in 20 years? Why has a guy, if he's such a wonderful guy, why didn't he get legal in 20 years?
By the way, let me stop you right there, Congressman, and I'm going to put it on one step further. And I think you agree with me. If you don't, you can correct me. A business that wants people to work, and they know they need some of these workers, I think should do everything to make sure they're legally here to work. Don't something goes back on them as well?
Yeah, I mean, they have a legal requirement to, like, not ignore the fact that their employee is in the country illegally. But they largely, Moon, from the business owner's perspective, let me just say, this is why I have some empathy. It's hard to fill these positions with American workers because increasingly the younger generations of Americans have stayed away from labor-intensive employment. So some of these guys can put ads in the papers, you know, for jobs for months and not have one application from an American. And yet, you know, they say, well, I have to build this thing, or I have to finish this job, or I have to harvest this crop. And the guys that are willing to actually do the job, or they show up in a truck and you just know that they're illegal, but you're trying to get your job finished. So I understand the pain that some American business owners have to go through. But I will say that as a constitutionalist, American patriot myself, this is a necessary pain that Americans are going to have to deal with, because I do not support any kind of amnesty. You can't take somebody that's been in the country, you know, here illegally for years and put them at the front of the line of people that are following all the rules and trying to come to our country legally. Yeah, I do not support that. It's been tried in the past. It don't work. We have an estimated 55 million illegals in our country. Not to count the other 50 million that are here on visas legally. So you're talking about 1/3 of our country is here either on a visa or here illegally. And we have to get our arms wrapped around it, and that's exactly what the Trump administration is doing. And I have a seat at that table, and we're going to continue pushing.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it that way, Congressman, because nobody deserves to be here illegally. It's breaking our laws. You know, you are a policeman, so I'm in a 60 and I'm doing 75, and you pull me over. And you say, man, you're doing 75 miles an hour. You know how dangerous that is? And I get a ticket, probably because I broke the law. They get to break the law, and we got to look the other way. And then we pay for them, and that's the next question. You know, they talked about Medicaid cuts. Medicaid program's going up 3%. The Medicaid wants to cut out illegals getting something they don't deserve.
That's right.
And so you guys are doing the right thing, but the media and the Democrats try to turn everything into hate and race.
Yeah, that's right.
Everything. And that you're trying to save the country from the country deteriorate. We got $37 trillion worth of debt.
Including saving Medicaid. Let me interject, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Good, sir. We were talking about saving Medicaid, not cutting Medicaid. We're saving Medicaid from the liberal bureaucrats who have allowed it to become infested with people on the Medicaid rolls that should not be on the Medicaid rolls. And therefore, Medicaid itself is threatened. Yeah. So you got to get illegals off of Medicaid. You got to get working age, healthy Americans that are not even trying to find a job. That's not what Medicaid was designed for. So in order to protect Medicaid for the Americans that it was originally intended for, the truly needy, the people on it that are having a hard time, have lost their job and trying to get another one, people that are disabled, young mothers that have to care for their child, pregnant women that have no other health care. These are the people that we absolutely should protect and provide health care for through Medicaid. And the people that should not be on the Medicaid roll should be removed, which is what we're doing.
Yeah. And by the way, none of that should offend anybody. But, they went out there, oh, you cut Medicaid, the big, beautiful bill, cut Medicaid. I'm saying, now, and Congressman, it takes, I might not be the brightest, but if you have a $100 budget and you go up to 103, I can't tell you that my budget went down. It doesn't make any damn sense. You see what I'm saying? But that's what the Democrats in the media, they cut. Well, if you were helping illegals, you might have got cut. If it was fraud, you might have got cut.
Oh, there's a lot of fraud. I'm glad you brought that up. You see people getting arrested every day now. And it's because the Trump administration has green-lighted that level of prosecution. The Biden administration was not prosecuting that stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that was the other thing that I brought up. Look at the night and day difference that y'all and President Trump has done compared to with the Biden, I call it Obama administration. They could have done all this. They chose not to even look at it. They don't look at the fentanyl problem. They don't look at the drug problem. They don't look at the child trafficking problem. They don't look at the murders. They don't look at the rapes. They don't even look at this stuff in the inner cities. They don't. And so that's running the country?
Well, they were drawing illegals to the sanctuary cities and states and counties across the country in order to stack the deck for the next census, in order to shift congressional apportionment within every sovereign state that has a sanctuary zone, in order to shift that representation to Democrat congressional offices and like permanently stack the deck against Americans and conservative America First policy. So we think we have a pretty good grasp on things right now, Moon, and we've moved things in the right direction pretty drastically across the board. I think it's going to end up being a turning point for our country in the right direction.
Yeah. Let me take a break. We'll wrap up with Congressman Clay Higgins when we take this break. Hi, y'all. Welcome back to the Moon Griffon Show. I want to thank our friends at Talk 107.3 FM for putting up with us, Guaranteed Broadcasting. And, of course, this is what it sounds like when you have a congressman or a sitting United States Senate that comes on for an hour. It's what it sounds like, folks. Clay Higgins, Congressman Higgins, my special guest. It's a Matthew James Tax Pro hotline. You can always email me, moon@moongriffon.com. Somebody asked a great question, and you can answer this, Congressman. I'm going to ask it anyway. I think you saw all the unlawful acts that was committed against Donald Trump by people from the DOJ to whatever, and the Russian collusion and all that. It's just a question. You make an answer, you may not can touch it. Any handcuffs on anybody before this thing's all said and done because of all the stuff they did to Trump, to our country, and the laws that were broken? Or is that something you got to stay away from because it's being investigated?
Well, accountability for those horrible actions against our president that dated back to his first term. Mm-hmm. And as you know, I stayed pretty close with the president with his 4 years out of office. I went to Mar-a-Lago several times, and there's a tremendous amount of pain and injury that was brought upon the president and his family by a weaponized federal law enforcement and weaponized DOJ. The Biden White House was absolutely targeting the president and his family. Mm-hmm. He had multiple criminal investigations, none of which had any substance to them, but he had to deal with them. You still have to go through, you have to get attorneys and in each jurisdiction, and you have to show up for court, and you have to deal with that stuff. Mm-hmm. So he had to do that, and we knew that he was innocent of these things, but he still had to win those cases, and he has now won them all. and now we have every right to pursue the illegal and unconstitutional actions of those that were involved in those investigations, knowing that they were using their office to politically target the once and future president of the United States. Yep. So we're going after those guys, and some of them will be, to answer your caller's question, will be in handcuffs or already have been in handcuffs and prosecuted, and they're working with the DOJ now as a cooperative witness to put some of the bigger fish in jail. And some things are coming to light. You know, my committee was involved in. We actually wrote the 11 subpoenas that were based around the so-called Epstein files, mm-hmm. and that includes some big names: James Comey, Hillary Clinton. We're looking into things and investigating things that should have been investigated many years ago, but the president's DOJ is moving very aggressively under Pam Bondi, and the FBI is executing operations beautifully under Kash Patel, and I'm honored to have a humble seat at those tables because of my seniority on the Oversight Committee and my relationship with the president.
Yeah, the tariffs. Everybody made a big deal about tariffs. And my question to you is, people start to say, well, they're causing prices to go up and all that. Man, prices have been skyrocketing before Donald Trump was ever won the presidency again. And my question to you is, what's been the effect of the tariffs? I saw today tariffs, because of what we did with tariffs, we've made the U.S. economy start to roll again. But, people talking about the prices, but I don't see where the prices have gone up any higher, but under Biden, it's skyrocketed.
Right. Well, the president is a very astute businessman, and he has vision that's over the horizon, and he's got a rare skill. If you've been in a room with him when he's negotiating things, he's always 8, 10, 20 steps ahead of everybody else in the room. And you don't even realize how far ahead he was until days or weeks later, and you realize what he was doing. So it was the same way with tariffs. There were many of my own Republican colleagues were quite wary of tariffs. But some of us are students of history, and we know that before the federal income tax, the nation operated very well on tariffs and drawing in external money. And some of us reasonably look at the United States of America as the most wealthy market on earth, and we see it as if you want to do business here, then you should pay to enter this mm-hmm. market. Mm-hmm. It makes no sense that America should be, if you think about it, we should not be in debt. The world should be indebted to us.
No way. We should have this debt, which, by the way, and I don't have much time left, the debt part, and I know the big, beautiful bill put a $5 trillion ceiling on that. I hope it's not used. I hope we go the other direction, because I know you had to do that because the Democrats used that in the election process.
Right. Well, the debt limit is like a credit limit on a credit card. Mm-hmm. You can have a $10,000 limit on a credit card, and if you have a $1,000 balance, you're in good shape. Mm-hmm. But if you have a $5,000 limit on a credit card, and you got $4,800 on it, you're in trouble. So it's the spending that's the issue, not the credit limit or the debt limit.
Definitely spending.
So we're addressing spending quite aggressively, and revenue. The president is seeking, as you stated, tremendous levels of revenue from outside the United States that has never been pursued in modern history, and he's good at it. He had vision in that arena, and I support the pursuit of of fair and equitable tariffs. And by the way, let me close on that. Mm-hmm. The president is using tariffs in ways that many people don't grasp, but he's using it as leverage. Economic and tariff leverage of the United States is significant when it comes to like geopolitical negotiations that can stop or end wars across the world and encourage economic growth and economic freedom across the world. So he's using tariffs in a very brilliant manner, and I'd support the entire endeavor.
Yeah, it looks like, it really does look like he's a step ahead of everybody on the tariffs. I've had buddies of mine that when the president started talking about tariffs, which, by the way, he talked about it during the election.
That's right.
When he started talking about and actually doing it, they said, man, I can't believe he's doing this. When you got some, they thought it was going to be a total disaster. And these are people that invest billions. And they called me back and they said, you know what? It could be a disaster. It could be the most brilliant thing anybody's ever done.
Yeah.
And it looks like to me it's closer to that than being a disaster.
Yeah, no, it's going to work very well. And honestly, America should embrace a vision where we have no debt and where our country is primarily funded by the other wealthy nations of the world who want to enter this market and do business. I mean,
Congressman, can you imagine if our debt was $2 trillion, where inflation would be right now? Unbelievable how great it would be.
The
hey,
value
we got to go.
Of our dollar.
Hey, thank you for coming on.
Moon, it's been great to be with you, sir. God bless you, and we will be fine.
Now we know what it looks like when a congressman comes on for an hour and not just 10 minutes. Thank you, sir.